Hello, everyone, and welcome to lesson number 9 in this wonderful, incredible book, Prosperity by Charles Fillmore. I'm Reverend Wally White with Unity in Greensboro, and here is Reverend Todd.
Hello, friends. I'm Reverend Todd Humphrey. I am with Crystal Coast Unity in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And this is one of my favorite chapters in this book. I'm so looking forward to diving in to lesson 9, Tithing, the Road to Prosperity. We do want to remind you that, some of the ideas in this text might tweak you. You might get excited and there's something you want to share. So make sure you go into the comments and you let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what questions you have, what you want to argue with, what you agree with, all of the above. Because this is about creating a conversation and a dialogue in the comments. So make sure you share whatever's going on with you as we read this text.
Yeah, I think it's important to know nobody's reaching for your wallet. And although it's been so long since I read this, I'm going to get some reminders. There may be a suggestion of you reaching for your wallet. I don't know. But it's never just about money. It's also about your time and your talent and all of that. So, I invite all of us, me included, to kind of take a good breath and then relax and be willing to open and hear what's here and know that this isn't an order. This is simply information for you to use in the way that you think is best for you.
Absolutely. Are you willing to keep an open mind, friends? Type that in the chat right now. I will keep an open mind.
I will keep an open mind.
So it is.
So it is.
You going to start reading today, Reverend Wally?
Sure.
Great.
Okay. Lesson 9, Tithing, the Road to Prosperity. As ye abound in everything, in faith and utterance and knowledge, and in all earnestness, and in your love to us, see that ye abound in the grace also. Honor Jehovah with thy substance, and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy vats shall overflow with new wine. Under the Mosaic law, a tithe or tenth was required as the Lord's portion. Throughout the Old Testament, the tithe or tenth is meant as a reasonable and just return to the Lord by way of acknowledging him as the source of supply. After Jacob had seen the vision of the ladder with angels ascending and descending on it, he set up a pillar and made a vow to the Lord, saying, of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee. In the 3rd chapter of Malachi, we find God's blessing directly connected with faithfulness in giving to the Lord's treasury. But gifts should be made because it is right and because one loves to give, not from a sense of duty or for the sake of reward. That there will be a reward following the giving, we are also assured by Jesus in a direct promise, give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall they give unto your bosom. For with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. Promises of spiritual benefits and increase of God's bounty through the keeping of this divine law of giving and receiving abound in all the scriptures. There is that scattereth and increaseth yet more, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it rendereth only to want. The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. He that hath a bountiful eye shall be blessed, for he giveth of his bread to the poor. He that soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Blessed are ye that sow beside all waters. We are living now under larger and fuller blessings from God than man has ever known. It is meet, therefore, that we give accordingly and remember the law of the tithe. For if a tenth was required under the law in those olden times, it is certainly no less fitting that we should give it cheerfully now. One of the greatest incentives to generous giving is a keen appreciation of the blessings secured to us through the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. He that spareth not his own son, but deliver him up for us all, how shall he not also with him freely give us all things? Freely ye received, freely give. True giving is the love and generosity of the spirit quickened heart, responding to the love and generosity of the Father's heart. In the second letter, Paul made a stirring appeal to the Corinthians for a generous gift to their poorer brethren in Jerusalem. He suggests some principles of giving that are always applicable, for giving is a grace that adds to the spiritual growth of all men in all times. Without giving, the soul shrivels, but when giving is practiced as part of the Christian living, the soul expands and becomes godlike in the grace of liberalities and generosity. No restoration to the likeness of God can be complete unless mind, heart, and soul are daily opening out into the large, free, bestowing spirit, which so characterizes our God and Father. Therefore, it is not surprising that Paul classes the grace of giving with faith, knowledge, and love. A very simple yet practical plan for exercising this grace of giving had been suggested by Paul in his first letter to the Corinthian church. Upon the first day of the week, he said, let each one of you lay by him in store as he may prosper. That is, each member was asked to contribute to the establishing of a treasury. This was to be the Lord's storehouse, into which each one was to put his offerings regularly in a proportion to his means. In adopting this plan, the offerer became a steward of the Lord's goods and entered upon a course of training and discipline needed to make a good steward, for it takes wisdom to know how rightly to dispense the bounty of God. Perhaps no simpler way to begin one's growth in the grace of giving can be suggested for our own day. Those who have followed this method have usually found that they had more money to give than they had thought possible. Let's take a break and talk about that for a second.
Okay.
You know, I remember in my youth hearing about people talking about giving money to churches, and it was usually a negative conversation. I remember a older person that my family knew, who said that he was going to give most of his estate to one son and not the other because the other was too involved with his church and he didn't want his money to all go to the church instead of his sons. So like I first had this kind of negative feeling about giving money to a church. And I'm going to keep talking about that for a second, but I do want to make it clear, tithing isn't just about giving money to a church, and it's also not just about giving money. But let's start and just have that conversation first, right? And so it was really when I got out to Los Angeles and met Della Reese and started going to the church that she had founded, Up Church, that I started looking at tithing differently, and started, just giving. And at first I would do, I'm a logical thinker, so I needed some rules in place. And so when a check came in, I just 10% of whatever, I wrote that check and went straight back out, and And then at the end of that first year of doing that, and it had worked fairly well for me, then I got a tax refund. And then I was confused. I didn't know what to do because I technically already tithed off all the money that the tax refund came in. And but then it didn't feel right not giving, so I gave a tenth of that too. But I eventually shifted to whatever the net of my check was. I gave 10% of that. And then every year, also, when the tax refund came in, and in those days, I always got a tax refund, then I also gave off of that as well. So I've done both ways. And I'll give you one more. And then I want to know what you do, Todd, is at some point I was reading an article in the Science of Mind magazine, and it was about tithing. And they were talking about different ways that people do it. And they said, and I don't know if this is true, I just remember this from the article. In this article, it said that the Catholics recommended that you give 5% of your tithe to the church and 5% to other charities. And so I actually shifted there for a while and went and set up a completely separate checking account that was meant for nothing but money. All the money, 100% of the money in that account was to give away to places where I felt called to give it to. And so I put 5% in there and I'd give 5% to the church. So I've tried it and done it in multiple ways myself. What's your experience been?
Well, I had to grow into an appreciation of tithing because there have been a number of times where I have not fallen back into this as a spiritual practice of the truth I know. And when I fall away from it, suddenly more ideas of lack and limitation show up in my life. So when I make a priority of focusing on tithing, then I don't live in lack and limitation. One of the things I want to go back to something very early in the chapter. So it's on the bottom of 131. Gifts should be made because it is right and because one loves to give, not from a sense of duty or for the sake of reward. And so even if you're taking 10% and paying it out to anybody, however anyone decides to give it out, if you're not doing it from a place of joy and because your needs are already met and giving out of your abundance, it's not really a tithe, right? Because part of the tithing practice is to align our consciousness with the truth that God is our source and our supply. And in living in this manifest world, sometimes it's easy to lose track of that. For me, anyway. Maybe some of our listeners are doing better with it, but when I fall away from it, I live in lack and limitation, and fear starts to creep in. And then when I get clear and I refocus and I make it a priority, I mean, money flows to me in ways and in channels that I would never have imagined.
Yeah, and not always in like giant chunks, right? Just in suddenly something's come up unexpected. A car is often a good example of that. Some repair that you certainly weren't expecting, and you rarely repair a car that doesn't have a chunky little bill with it, right? And then it's like, oh, well, that wasn't planned for this month. And then something will just flow in and take care of it in some other way,
Right. I absolutely. And one of the things that I think that there is some misunderstanding of tithing is that tithing has to be, to a religious institution, right? And it doesn't, right? In her book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity, Edwin Gaines talks, one of the whole chapters is on tithing, and that we are called to tithe to the person, place, or organization that feeds us spiritually. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a spiritual leader. It could show up in a number of different ways, right? I personally don't think that my charitable giving is part of my tithe. because charitable giving oftentimes is me identifying a need and wanting to support a need for social change, where my tithe is to go to the place, person, or thing that is person, place, or thing that is feeding me spiritually.
Right.
Like what is inviting me to expand in consciousness, right? And so that and there, you know, there are a number of different things in people that I have tithe to, and sometimes I don't. You know, there's no requirement to say, here, this is a tithe. This is, here, I want to bless you today.
Right.
You're a blessing to me, and I want to. Here's just a thank you gift.
Yeah, there is a difference in a gift and a tithe, really, right? You know, because the tithe is, if a tithe really only comes into play if you look at all of your gifts, your money, your talent, all that, as really a part of God's substance that
Right.
you're partaking in. And so then you're just making sure to help keep, you know, doing your part of funding the things that are keeping that kind of God presence alive. And you know, and that is different. You know, I have social things that are important to me too, but yeah, that's not quite like, that's really, that comes into play more. I'm tripping over my words here because I want to make sure I say this right. If that's where you feel called, and that, and you're like, and you want to call that a tithe, then go for it. I don't think anything that you know, we're saying here, there are no steadfast rules. You do it this way or you're doing it wrong. If you give at all, you're already in the right direction. Now what we're talking about is fine tuning the giving in a way that helps really press it down and shake it together and have it overflowing. Like, that part of scripture is ultimately what we're talking about, even if you're not a scripture person. And so yeah, it's about, like, am I giving to this politics, for instance? Am I donating to this candidate because I really like what they want to do for the world and my community? Or what happens often in politics, am I giving to this candidate because I really hate this candidate? Because that can't really be a tithe, because now hate is involved in the giving, right? And so that's not something any of us want to multiply, right? And if you look at, anytime you're giving attention and giving of gifts, your time or your money or any of that, like, that is fertilizer to help whatever you're giving that attention and what you're giving towards to grow. So that's another way of looking at, how do I want to tithe to? Do I want this to grow? Now, look, I'm gonna say right now, Crystal Coast Unity and Unity in Greensboro will appreciate your gifts. And if we inspire you in some way that you want to give some extra, I promise you that our churches are doing really great things in our communities. But this isn't about, but nobody's giving because you owe us. You don't owe us a dime. And but you know, if that's something that you want to help support and you want to help grow, I'm not going to dance around and act like we wouldn't appreciate the gift. But it's not, you don't, but it would be a gift because you feel like it's something you want to support, not because you owe anybody.
Absolutely. If this is feeding you spiritually, then consider it. And if not, that's okay.
What else matters to you in your world too? You know, I've recently had a lot of involvement with my local hospice, and they do some amazing work that benefit the families of the people who are using it. But, you know, and I've been a family that has used it. They helped care for my mom, and they just helped care for an old family friend that I've known for 50 years. And they weren't just caring for the patient, though. They were caring for everybody. They, like, this guy's sons, but then I was there so much, they were, you know, they were looking after me too, you know. So, like, that's an organization that's worthy of a tithe from me, because, you know, it's not just some social thing I'm supporting. It's the good work that is helping the souls of the people that, you know, that's why I would give, you know, as an example to that group.
Absolutely. It's a great example. But overall, tithing is a spiritual practice so that you learn to stop stepping on your garden hose, right? You turn the garden hose on and the water flows out, but when you step on the hose, the flow stops. And you are receiving good, and tithing allows that good to pass right through you, so that you're not stopping the flow, and you continue to live in the flow, acknowledging your source and your supply as infinite divine mind.
I will tell you that Della Reese kept, and look, Della was in a different ballpark in the human experience of finances. Like, she was a star, and she made good money on TV and all that. But she kept money, sometimes dollar bills, sometimes 5s, 10s, 20s, in the little compartment. I don't know what you call the compartment. It's not the glove compartment, the one next to the seat. Yeah. She kept money in there, in that piece. And if they pulled up to a stoplight and there was somebody out there with a sign asking for money, she gave money to every single one of them, and used to make her assistant, who would be driving, she'd say, there's a man over there asking for money. And Shirley would say, I can't get over to him. Della said, then drive around the block. You are not going to block my receiving by stopping me from giving. And, so she took it serious in that rule of giving and receiving, that if you wanted your receiving to keep coming in, like if you really love giving, then you better set yourself up to receive, because you can't give from an empty pot. So you got to keep refilling the pot, right? And in this human experience, that means being able to say, yes, thank you. And a good way to, I'll say before I start reading again, a good way to practice that, if you think that receiving is a challenge for you, and here's a good way to test yourself if you're like, well, I don't have a problem with receiving. Here's a good way to check that out. The next time somebody gives you a compliment, can you just say, thank you? Or do you have to explain away? Oh, that shirt looks so good on you. Oh, this old thing. Oh, well, or can you just say, well, thank you. I just wanted to wear this today. Can you just accept it? Or do you have to give an excuse for it? Do you feel embarrassed to receive the compliment? Because that's a good way of checking to see where you are on your willingness of receiving. That doesn't have anything to do with money. So,
but it's perfect, because our good comes to us in unlimited ways. And that compliment you give, or that compliment you receive, is part of the good that we give and we receive, right? Because when you give out a compliment, that might be the most amazing thing that person hears today. Right. In my brief foray up into the Manhattan area, living there, I had a friend who would always tell me, stop talking to strangers. You're going to get us killed. Because I would get on the subway and I would see somebody, I'd be like, look at you. You look amazing today. That outfit is incredible. You look so filled with light. And my friend would be terribly embarrassed, because, up there, you don't talk to strangers. But I've never met a stranger. So give the good and receive the good, and start with compliments. And Wally, that's a good color on you.
Well, thank you. I enjoy this shirt. Yeah, and good for you. My training in New York also was, do not speak to a stranger, certainly not on the subway. Definitely not on the subway, because if it's one that you just triggered, you can't get away from. But I think that's lovely. And I do that all the time. And like, we're in a new world about what you're supposed to say and not say to people. And, and now suddenly sometimes people don't want you to comment on their looks. You're supposed to go deeper, but it's like, well, I don't know you. I'm just saying, hey, that looks really nice on you. And I do that all the time. I haven't done it in New York City because I was trained not to, but I do it around here all the time, and I did it out in LA all the time. If I see somebody inside, look, I will sometimes, if I see somebody wearing something that I think is for me, my perspective, that I think is of questionable taste, but you can tell they put it on purpose. Well, I think that deserves to be acknowledged and say, well, and so I'm not going to lie and say that I think something looks good that I don't think looks good. but I think everybody looks good in some way, and it may be like, man, you really come alive in that today, or whatever. And I think if they put it on, and I noticed it, I ought to give them some kind of compliment about it. And I feel good giving compliments as often as I can. I immediately receive from that because it just feels good to be nice to people.
Yes, it does.
All right, let me get some water and we'll start reading again.
Okay.
Okay. This is the first full paragraph on page 134. I think that's where we stopped. In order that the plan of giving may be successful, there are several things that must be observed. First, there must be a willing mind. If the readiness is there, it is acceptable according as a man or woman hath, not according to their hath not. God loveth a cheerful giver. Secondly, the giving must be done in faith, and there must be no withholding because the offering seems small. Many of the instances of giving that are recorded in the Bible as worthy of special mention, condemnation, and blessing are instances where the gift itself was small. The widow who fed Elijah in his time of famine gave him a cake made with her last handful of meal. For her faith and her generous spirit, she was rewarded with a plentiful daily supply for food of herself and her sons, as well as for Elijah. The jar of meal shall not waste, neither shall the cruse of oil fail. The same truth is set forth beautifully in the New Testament, where it is clearly shown that not the amount of the offering, but the spirit in which it is given determines its value and power. As he, Jesus, sat down over against the treasury and beheld how the multitude cast money into the treasury, and many that were rich cast in much, and there came a poor widow, and she cast in 2 mites, which make a farthing. And he called unto him his disciples and said unto them, Verily I say unto you, this poor widow shall cast in more than all that they that are casting into the treasury, for they all did cast in of their superfluity. I think somebody made that word up. I never read that word in the Bible, superfluity. That sounds like a very modern word. Anyway, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living. The poor widow exemplified what it is to give in faith, and wherever 2 mites so great a gift as when they brought forth such praise from the master himself. The results of giving in faith are just as sure as in this age as in the time of Jesus, for the law is unfailing in all ages. A third requisite for keeping the law of giving and receiving is that the offering shall be just and fair, proportion to all that one receives. The amount was settled by Paul, and the measure he gave was as he may prosper. There is a certain definiteness, there we go, about this, and yet it admits of freedom for the giver to exercise his individual faith, judgment, and will. The question of wise distribution is closely related to the matter of filling God's treasury. To whom shall we give, and when are questions quite important? There are several truths that may be considered in this connection, but then each individual finds it necessary to trust to the spirit of wisdom manifest in his own heart, since there are no rules or precedents that one can follow in detail. This is as it should be, for it keeps the individual judgment, faith, love, sympathy, and will alive and active. Yet a careful study of the underlying laws of spiritual giving will help one to exercise these divine faculties as they should be exercised. If we follow the spirit of wisdom, we shall not give to anything that is contrary to the teaching of Jesus, but spend every penny in the furtherance of the good news of life that he proclaims, and in the promotion of the brotherhood of man that it is his mission to establish on earth among all those who become sons through him. True spiritual giving rewards with a double joy. First, that which comes from the laying of the gift upon the altar or in the Lord's treasury. Then the joy of sharing our part of God's bounty with others. One of the blessings is the satisfying knowledge that we are meeting the law and paying our debt of love and justice to the Lord. The other is the joy of sharing the Lord's bounty. Justice comes first, then generosity. Let's chit chat about that for a second. I feel like I've got to flip the page back because it's talking about the importance of giving from faith. And then it said the third requisite is the keeping of the law of giving and receiving, that is, offering shall be a just and fair proportion. Like, that's an interesting place that it's like, that's definitely open for interpretation of what's just and fair, right?
Absolutely. The 10th, someone, and I think maybe I'm going back, I think to Edwin Gaines, but I remember listening to a talk. It may have been a talk that I listened to on YouTube by Catherine Ponder that talks about a 10th is kind of like our training wheels on learning how to be generous, right? And I don't know about you, Wally, but there are some days that I feel more generous than other days, right? And so some days maybe the best I can do is 5%, and other days it might be 45%. Depending on where I am in that moment in consciousness, right? Because I'm human after all, and we humans sometimes don't embrace our divinity and have bad days. And so I think the 10th was as this person that I wish I was certain who said it, but it's kind of a training wheels, learning how to get used to being in the flow and being mindful of being generous and allowing it to pass through us. Not just our finances, but also our time, our talents, and treasure in so many different ways. And so in any given day, right, just as each of us has to go into our heart and be secure in the wisdom of where am I being directed to be generous, we have to go in, how much can I give right now and still know my own prosperity, right? And that's how I read that. A just and fair proportion of all that one receives. Paul settled this measure and gave what he said was, as he may prosper, right? As he may prosper. I give knowing that I'm prosperous. And if I give above a certain amount on any given day, maybe I don't feel prosperous anymore. And that is where lack and limitation ideas start showing up in my mind. And we're all invited into an empirical trial of our own lives, right? See what you can tweak in your own thoughts and feeling natures and still know your own prosperity, know your own abundance. Maybe.
Yeah, and because I think the just and fair really comes into like what you're talking about. Like, some days that may be a bigger number than other days, like as far as percentages go and that sort of thing. Your time and attention too. Some days you may not want to get out of bed, and then and so maybe that's not the day to. But maybe the next day you can get a little more. You can do a little more. You can spend the entire day out helping somebody run errands or do whatever that is, but it is, these are all, I think everything that's in here, it's so important to say. And I feel like I kind of already said this, but it bears repeating. Like, these are starting to sound like rules of how one goes about tithing and how one goes about giving. And that's only to give a suggested structure. At the end of the day, we all are having our own individual experiences, and we should do what we feel right within us to do. If you're like giving, but you look at what you're giving and you just feel the lack and limitation of, I can't afford to give this 10%, but they said I'm supposed to, so I'm going to do it, but I don't know how. Don't yet. Get yourself, like, sometimes you want to push outside your comfort zone, but so listen to that in yourself as well. But if you're just giving out of an obligation, as it was saying earlier in this book, take the moment to find that place of comfortable giving and build from there. You look, if you, like, when I was talking in my childhood, like, I kind of had a negative connotation towards giving to churches, in my youth. And obviously I feel differently about it now. But understand, I'm a paid employee at my church. They pay me to be the minister. I don't do it as charity. But I also tithe back in to the system, and I tithe to my home church in Los Angeles. And, it's like, it gets added in. That's not about like, hey, look what I do. It's just to say that, like, because I'm a paid employee of the church doesn't take me out of it's about all of us giving where and when we feel like we can. But, like, if you're coming from a place of like, that just feels like a lot to me. And I had a time when I was living check to check, so sometimes but I also had during there, I can't keep this and not give, because that's going to add to what I feel like is currently already a problem for me. So I've got to find a comfort level of still being able to give while I'm working out this financial challenge that I was living in at the time. But, like, if I now as minister march into the person who's living that experience right now and say, you've got to give 10%, like, I think they should say, you've got to get out of my house. Because what I would say is, you need to find a way to give. And if financially you don't think that's something you can do right now, then you need to find somewhere where you can give of your time, and find your way to where you can give in all levels. But if you're feeling a place of challenge and not enoughness in life, whether that be money or love or friends or, whatever the thing is, if you're feeling like you don't have enough of fill in the blank, the quickest way to fix that is to start giving something.
Preach.
And I don't even have a pulpit at the house.
Well, we know what you need next Christmas.
All right, I'm going to go just a little bit more here, and I'm going to hand it over to Todd. Let's see. So last full paragraph on 136. Even the so-called heathen recognize giving as a part of worship, for we find them coming with offerings when they worship their idols. All ages and all religious dispensations have stressed giving as a vital part of their worship. In this age, when we have so much, more is required of us, even to the giving of ourselves with all that we are and have. This privilege carries immeasurable benefits with it, for it looses us from the personal life, unifies us with the universal, and so opens our inner and outer life to the inflow and the outflow of the life, love, bounty, and grace of God. This is the blessed result of faithful obedience to the law and exercise of the grace of giving. The people were amazed when the prophet Malachi told them that they had been robbing God and desired to know wherein they had failed, when they thought that they had been serving the Lord so faithfully. People are as much amazed today to learn that they have been untrue to God's law, for the message of Malachi is for us quite as much as for the ancients. The Spirit of God gave this message through the prophet. Bring ye the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and prove me now herewith, saith Jehovah of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer enough to and I will rebuke the reviler for our sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast its fruit before the time in the field, saith Jehovah of hosts. And all nations shall call you happy, for ye shall be a delightsome land, saith Jehovah of hosts. That's where I'm going to turn it over to Todd to do a little bit of reading.
Okay. Study this third chapter of Malachi carefully if you would know the happy solution of the problem of giving and receiving. See how practical it is for people in every walk of life and for nations as well. It offers the solution to the problem of the farmer. It sets forth clearly a law of prosperity for all classes of people. For those who need protection for their crops from frosts, droughts, floods, for those who would escape the plagues, pestilences, and manifold things that would destroy their supply and support. It is a simple law, but so effective. Simply give a tithe or tenth or the first fruits or their equivalent to the Lord. God should not be expected to meet all man's requirements in the matter of giving this protection and increase unless man fulfills the requirements of God. The act of giving complies with the divine law because it involves the recognition of God as the giver of all increase. And unless we have a recognition of the source of our supply, we have no assurance of continuing in its use. Many people have doubts as to whether it will really do any good to ask the Lord for protection and for plenty in regard to crops or other supply. Many who are employed in cities or who are in business think it strange that they should believe in omnipresent prosperity. Thus, unbelief is present with them at the very time when an unwavering faith is most necessary. There is a psychological reason why people should obey spiritual law. When a person obeys the law of God along any line, his faith immediately becomes strengthened in proportion and his doubts disappear. When anyone puts God first in his finances, not only in thought, but in every act, by releasing his first fruits, a tenth part of his increase or income, to the Lord, his faith in omnipresent supply becomes 100-fold stronger, and he prospers accordingly. Obeying this law gives him an inner knowing that he is building his finances on a sure foundation that will not fail him. Everything in the universe belongs to God, and through all things are for the use and enjoyment of man. He can possess nothing selfishly. When man learns that a higher law than human custom and desire is working in the earth to bring about justice, righteousness, and equalization, he will begin to obey that law by tithing, loving his neighbor, and doing unto others as he would have them do unto him. Then man will reach the end of all the troubles brought upon himself by his selfishness and greed, and will become healthy, prosperous, and happy. The pastor of a small church in Georgia suggested to his congregation, composed largely of cotton farmers, that they dedicate a tenth part of their land to the Lord and ask him for protection against the ravages of the boll weevil, which had devastated the crops in that vicinity for several years. 7 farmers in the congregation decided to do this. They took no measures to protect their crop on these dedicated acres, yet the pest did not attack the cotton there. The quality of the fiber was better on those acres than on any that adjoined them. The experiment was so successful, in fact, that practically all the farmers in that community have decided to follow the plan in the future. Many experiences such as this are awakening men to respect our relation to the infinite principle of life everywhere present that we know as God. This divine element of life that manifests itself as growth and substance resides within the factors that combine to produce cotton, wheat, and all other forms of vegetation. Then certainly if the farmer works in acknowledged sympathy with this life principle, it will work in sympathy with him and for his good, each contributing in love and understanding to the other. A larger crop will be the result and a larger measure of prosperity for the farmer. Not only the farmer, but the banker, the tradesman, the professional man can work in sympathy and harmony with this principle of growth and increase. The infinite life principle is as responsive in one field as another, and it is everywhere present. Even so-called inanimate objects are filled to the full with this infinite life, and even coined gold is tense with the desire to expand and grow. The materials handled by the tradesmen are made of the same substance that makes the universe and contain within themselves the germ of growth and increase. All men are therefore daily associated with life, and through rendering it to the reverent acknowledgement that is its due, and through witnessing this acknowledgement by dedicating a part of their increase, they are prospered. I want to stop there for just 1 second and give a little brief personal story. Many years ago, I was fairly new in this unity, new thought tradition, and I had always held have I told the story about the furniture store? No, okay, I can't remember. We've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and my stories get away from me. I left a job because I was terribly unhappy in it, and I took a job selling bunk beds in a kid's furniture store. And I'd been holding on this idea and this belief that work had to be laborious and boring and not fun, and that's what it was. And you had to work hard for your money. Have you ever had that idea? I have to work hard for my money.
Yeah.
So I gave that up, and I went and I was selling furniture. I went from a salaried position to full commission sales, right? Complete commission. And I learned that I could, because it worked on an UPS system. I don't know if you know what an UPS is, but as the customer would come in the store, whoever was up for a customer, that was their customer, and they got to sell to that person. And if that person, was carrying ice cream with them and walked around the store and then walked back out, you lost your up, right? So I could sit there and I could stew and be mad, or every time someone else came in and they got a sale, I could bless their customer and bless them in their ability to sell bunk beds or princess beds or Winnie the Pooh beds, whatever. And I discovered that in blessing what everybody else was doing, my 3rd month there, I was the top salesperson for that month. And I was still pretty new, and that did not win me any friends in that location, right? But it's amazing how when we celebrate everyone else's experience of prosperity, it shows up for us. And because I was new, and so I had taken up this spiritual practice of tithing, and that works too. But this is true. Practice it. Do your own empirical trial, friends,
And name it and claim it.
Amen.
And the same thing we've talked about before in other classes on if you want to prepare for a new loved one in your home, make space for it. In this same kind of way, as you're naming and claiming some new good that's going to come into you. And it's really cool sometimes to do an affirmation where you're like, I am thinking in advance for all the good that is flowing to me from expected and unexpected places and people and things. And so that you really open up. But then you're like, and as this comes in, oh, I can't wait to give to fill in the blank, like they just fill my heart when they do this work and they do this thing. And, it's like, and I want to support that because I'm so happy that that's in the world that I live in. And I'm planning it in advance as it's coming in, what I'm going to do with it, try it.
Yep. All right, I'm going to jump back in here. This is the first paragraph ending on page 140. The tithe is the equivalent of the increased fertility of the land. If by acknowledging God as the giver of all life, the farmer raises 2 or 6 or 20 bushels more on his field, that extra portion, which he would not have had otherwise, is the Lord's portion. In trade, the tithe is the equivalent of the increased quality of goods. In professional life, the tithe is the increased ability or the increased appreciation. The tithing principle can be applied in all of our industrial and social relationships. In every case where it has been applied and followed for a time, the tither has been remarkably blessed, quite as much so in the case of the cotton farmers and their tithe acres. There are many people who wish to give, but seem at a loss as to how to go about it or where to begin. They do not know how much they should give, or when, or how often to offer their gifts, and there are a host of related questions. To answer these questions, there must be found a definite basis for their giving, a rule to which they can conform. This is where the law of tithing fits beautifully, for it is a basis and a sound one, tested and proved for thousands of years. A tithe may be a 10th part of one's salary, wage, or allowance, of the net profits of business, or of the money received from the sale of goods. It is based on every form of supply, no matter through what channel it may come. For there are many channels through which man is prospered. The 10th should be set apart for the upkeep of some spiritual work or workers. It should be set apart first, even before one's personal expenses are taken out. For in the right relation of things, God comes first always. Then everything else follows in divine order and falls into its proper place. The great promise of prosperity is that if men seek God and his righteousness first, then all shall be added unto them. One of the most practical and sensible ways of seeking God's kingdom first is to be a tither, to put God first in finances. It is the promise of God, the logical thing to do, and the experience of all who have tried it, that all things necessary to their comfort, welfare, and happiness have been added to them in an overflowing measure. Tithing establishes method in giving and brings into the consciousness a sense of order and fitness that will be manifested in one's outer life and affairs as increased efficiency and greater prosperity. Another blessing that follows the practice of tithing is the continual letting go of what one receives, which keeps one's mind open to the good and free, from covetousness. Making an occasional large gift and then permitting a lapse of time before another is made will not give this lasting benefit, for one's mind channel may in the meantime become clogged with material thoughts of fear, lack, or selfishness. When a person tithes, he is giving continuously, so that no spirit of grasping, no fear, and no thought of limitations gets a hold on him. There is nothing that keeps a person's mind so fearless and so free to receive the good constantly coming to him as the practice of tithing. Each day, week, payday, whenever it is, the tither gives 1/10. When an increase of prosperity comes to him, As come it will and does, his first thought is to give God the thanks and the tenth of the new amount. The free, open mind thus stayed on God is certain to bring forth joy, real satisfaction in giving, and true prosperity. Tithing is based on a law that cannot fail, and it is the surest way ever found to demonstrate plenty, for it is God's own law and way of giving. And all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or the fruit of the tree, is Jehovah's. It is holy unto Jehovah. Let us give as God gives, unreservedly and with no thought of return, making no mental demands for recompense on those who have received from us. A gift with reservations is not a gift, it is a bribe. There is no promise of increase unless we give freely, then let go of the gift entirely and recognize the universal scope of the law. Then the gift has a chance to go out and come back multiplied. There is no telling how far the blessing may travel before it comes back, but it is a beautiful and encouraging fact that the longer it is in returning, the more hands it is passing through and the more hearts it is blessing. All these hands and hearts add something to it in substance, and it is increased all the more when it does return. We must not try to fix the avenues through which our good is to come. There is no reason for thinking that what you give will come back through the one and to whom you gave it. All men are one in Christ and form a universal brotherhood. We must put away any personal claims such as, I gave to you, now you give to me, and supplant it with, inasmuch as ye did it unto one of these my brethren, even these least, ye did it unto me. The law will bring each of us just what is his own. The reaping of the seeds has been sown. The return will come, for it cannot escape the law, though it may quite possibly come through a very different channel from what we expect. Trying to fix the channel through which his good must come to him is one of the ways in which the personal man shuts off his own supply.
I
The
think
spirit.
that's worthy of a conversation
Okay.
because I think that, I mean, look, I'm all learned in this stuff, and I have, I still have those times where it's like, well, I said something nice to them and they didn't say anything nice back to me. Well, that's because they don't have to, or, well, I spent this amount of money on, this person and they gave me this little trinket. Like, I think if we can get to a place, and this is my own challenge to work on for myself too, like in seeing this, is like, if you give and then immediately start looking elsewhere in the world for the return, so that the surprise is if it actually comes back from where you gave to, rather than an expectation that it's supposed to come. That's where I think we get so upset so often. It's like, well, I gave to him and he didn't give back to me. Because that's not how the law works. And we're getting upset that the law is not rewriting itself for us, rather than finding our way into using the law that works really, really well like it is.
Yes. It's very curious how all that works, right?
Yeah.
And how often do we limit our good by deciding this is the only way this can show up, right?
Right.
Because when we decide this is the way our good is supposed to show up because I've done this other thing, and then we get the phone call out of the clear blue and we go, oh no, I can't do that, I'm waiting on my good to show up.
Right.
Maybe that unexpected call was your good showing up.
Not even maybe, probably, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've started saying from that lesson is, people say, well, out of the, this good came out of the blue. No, well, fine. But blue is, as long as you understand blue is another word for God, that your good is always flowing from that spiritual principle. And so look, you're upping your chances if you release the expectation from it coming one way, and instead of this one way, you're opening up the rest of the dial. You're really setting yourself up for far more to come in, Because now, if the surprise is the one and the expectation is all the rest, like, you got a better shot of being able to recognize it when it flows in, right?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. What was the my good shows up right on time in, you said, in unexpected ways, or
In expected and unexpected ways, and from people and all of that.
yeah.
Yeah, and like really allowing the unexpected to be the place that you look the most, because the unexpected is a much larger space than the expected, right?
Yes. Yes. And I delight in all the many ways that the universe surprises me every day.
Absolutely. And so it is.
So we're at the last two sentences on 143. The spiritual minded man does not make selfish use of the law, but gives because he loves to give. Because he gives with no thought of reward and no other motive than love, he is thrown more completely into the inevitable operation of the law, and his return is all the more certain. He is inevitably enriched and cannot escape it. Jesus said, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over." He was not merely making a promise, but stating a law that never fails to function. So inexhaustible is the bounty of the giver of all good that to him who has eyes to see it and faith to receive it, God is an unfailing source of supply. The munificent giver withholds nothing from him who comes in the name of a son and heir and lays claim to his portion. It is the Father's good measure to give us the kingdom, and all that the Father has is ours. But we must have the faith and the courage to claim it. Men who accomplish great things in the industrial world are the ones who have faith in the money producing power of their ideas. Those who would accomplish great things in the demonstration of spiritual resources must have faith to lay hold of the divine ideas and the courage to speak them into expression. The conception must be followed by the affirmation that the law is instantly fulfilled. Then the supply will follow in manifestation. And so it is.
So it is. I think that the wording in that second to last paragraph on this last page has some really strong affirmation invitations, I think, for people to look at this next week. God is an unfailing source of supply. God is my unfailing source of supply. I'm staring at this thing that feels like that I don't have enough of, or that I have a need that is feeling unmet. I'm going to start looking at that and say, it is already taken care of because God is my unfailing source of supply. And then it says, where else in here was it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. Seek ye first the kingdom, because it is God's pleasure to give you the kingdom. Now, metaphysically, we teach that the kingdom simply represents that harmony of our thoughts and our physical experience, getting that harmony of allowing all that to just be in this peace and happy place. That's really the kingdom, because you're set. Because if you want to receive some happy, you got to be in the vibration of happy. If you're just, today is a bad day and don't try and make it better because it's bad, happy could be bouncing around you and you can't see it because you've not tuned in to that channel. So tune into the channel of my supply is flowing in all directions, expected and unexpected, and there is an unfailing supply for me. Say that and know that for yourselves this week, folks.
That's your challenge, and we hope you accept it. Make sure again that you write some comments down, in the comments. Ask questions. Tell us what your you're fighting with. And we will be affirming the truth that we all have the eyes to see and the faith to receive all the good that God is sending our way right now.
And so it is. I accept it. All right, chat with us. I love to go back and have conversations with you all. You know, even if you're watching this at another time than when it originally aired, I'm remembering to go back as often as I can to look, and I love having those conversations. So talk to us. Let's have those conversations as well. And until then, we'll hold on. Find something to give this week that maybe you wouldn't have thought about giving before this lesson. Give that where you can give freely and lovingly and all that, and then be willing to also look for accepting your good coming into you. All right, I'm going to get off my pulpit now that I don't even have here at the house.
Not yet.
Not
but
yet.
It's coming.
And now I have to accept it when it shows up.
Amen. Amen.
All right, stay blessed, everybody.
Be well, friends. Thank you, Reverend Wally.
Thank you.